Hello and welcome along to our weekly Think About It session, our empowered leadership discussions. Hi, Tienie, welcome along.
Thank you, Kirsty. Hello. I love Thursdays.
I know, I say this all the time, but genuinely it's one of my favourite things to do this every week.
Yeah. Just have a
And
chat.
especially this week, because we're talking about coaching, our favourite topic. So today is around business coaching skills to help elevate performance as a leader or in the workplace. So for anyone that's just joining, these Think About It sessions are our gift to you, which is our micro insight to help you lead better, be more empowered as a leader, and be more collaborative. So this week we are talking about business coaching, and that aligns with our business coaching accreditation doors being open. So we are onboarding people for the November cohort. So it'll be really good if you've got any questions or anything you want to share or ask around coaching, pop it in the chat and we'll get going.
Nice. So let's just flick it on its head a little bit. I know you always lead, but tell me, what made you become a coach, Kirsty?
Oh. I know I'm really biased because I do love coaching, obviously the name of the business. But I think it's one of those things that I was in corporate before I ran my coaching practice and before we launched Ethical Coaching Company. And I'd experienced coaching, but I experienced coaching when I was a bit of a loss of what I was going to do with my career. I did pretty well pretty quickly in corporate, or felt misaligned, never really felt that I was following a purpose, but kind of took the materialistic gains of being in corporate, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Then I kind of thought, what am I going to do? And I went off and got coaching myself. And then that kind of almost unlocked this is a new thing. And I did it external to the business, so it wasn't just your usual, because I think there's a bit of a bad rep on coaching in corporate of it's the big companies, it's a big cookie cutter, you get what you're given, and it's not always really impactful. So I went and sought my own and had a really great experience, which then kind of set me on this path to just become obsessed with the skill of coaching. Obviously then set out to become a coach myself. Again, did it on my own back, completely self-funded, and then found you. But I think it was actually just taking a step back in my roles, all of the roles that I've ever done, and gone, what do I really, really love? And it is empowering and enabling people to really step into their potential. And other than being a trainer, which I was kind of like, do I really want to go down that route? Coaching seemed like a really accessible way to do that to me. And then when I started coaching, it was almost like the heavens had opened and it's like, this is what you should be doing.
Yeah. And it's so nice when you get into the flow of who you are and it aligns to the work that you're doing. And so then every day is a great day.
And it feels really easy, right? Like, and I don't mean it's easy running a business, like that. It's absolutely not. But the actual coaching conversations just flow, and it just flows naturally because I'm a really curious person by just my natural trait is to be really curious. And that lends itself well to being a coach, thankfully. So it almost feels to me like I'm putting on an old pair of slippers going into a coaching conversation, and it just feels really nice.
Yeah. So I'm a guy or a girl or a lady or someone that's now interested in coaching, and I'm knocking on your door and I'm saying, Kirsty, you're a great coach. What are the 3 things I need to know before I even start looking for a coaching journey that I'm going to go on?
To become a coach or to find a coach?
Either. Let's answer both.
First of all, I think you need to really understand what coaching is and what it entails, because I think in the online space, there is so much noise and so much like information, and it's based on people's opinion rather than fact a lot of the time. Don't get us wrong, there are some really good bodies out there doing some really great stuff. Unfortunately, with the noise of the internet and the fact that we are operating in an unregulated industry, there is a lot of noise out there. And I've come across people just yesterday, someone come into my inbox on LinkedIn and said they've been looking for an accreditation. They now realise the accreditation they've got isn't worth the paper they're written on because there's no underlying framework, regulation, all that stuff. People don't realise the fact that the industry isn't regulated. They don't really understand when they go out onto the online world the difference between paying 50 quid for a certificate online and probably some of them are like 15, 20 grand diplomas and all that stuff. Like, what is it that they're looking for? So I think the first thing that anyone needs to really understand is what actually is coaching, and what is it that attracts you to that? Because I think everybody can be a coach, but not everyone should be a coach, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And there's a lot of altruism involved. In other words, putting the other person first, diminishing your ego. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that you got to navigate as you approach this.
100%. So the other thing, so yes, for three. So the first thing is understand. I think the second thing is be willing to put in the hard work, as in work on yourself. Whether you are a coach or a coachee, you have responsibility to do self-reflection, to understand yourself, to become very self-aware, to work on your emotional intelligence. And sometimes that work is the hardest bit of work because it is parking the ego, understanding, maybe I wasn't right about the way I lead, or maybe that approach isn't the best approach. So understand, to be really open to doing the work and to learning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And receive the feedback with grace and challenge yourself for just delivering mediocre work. And it's being able to have that self-awareness to help you shift yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. What else would I say? Slow down, I think, is around slow down and understand what's driving it, what's the vision, what really is in it for you, what's in it for the other person, like what is it? Because I think so often, well, two things. People, if you're looking for coaching, people think a business coach is going to be the silver bullet, right? People think, I'm going to pay you these bucks and you're going to tell me what I need to do to solve all my problems, right? Or if they want to be a coach, they've seen in the online space this horrible online business coach era that we seem to be living in since COVID, of this is a quick, easy way to make money, right? Like this. And so they just want to get qualified as quick as they can. But actually, they need to slow down and learn their craft and learn their skills and practice. But sometimes we're so quick to want to get to the end result, which I understand. But actually just slowing down and going, what do I really want out of this? Or why do I want to be a coach?
Yeah. The measure of a master, what do they say? It's 10,000 hours of specifically working on that one particular craft for you to become a master. None of us are masters yet, so to speak. I'd say more generalists than masters, but some of us are actually getting close to being a master in this space and being able to adjust to other people.
And I think a lot of the time when you are a coach or you want to evolve into being a coach, you've probably naturally sat in that space unknowingly for quite a long time, or you have a natural coaching approach as a leader, or you have naturally got more of an empowering style, like you're almost bringing all that knowledge and wisdom and learning with you to evolve almost in like molding it into being a really great coach. Like you're not starting from scratch, are you? Like if you've been in the working world and you've led or you've managed or you've run a business, you've been a leader in some capacity, how you choose to be that leader is probably going to aid you to become a really great coach, or be the challenge to stop you becoming a really great coach.
Yes. And it's your ease of use, so to speak, that you bring. And in your coaching journey so far, what challenges have you had with potential clients, with areas that you felt it's a no-go, it's a boundary for me? Because not everything is roses.
Absolutely not. There are a lot of challenges, right? And I think this is a both way. You have to be aligned with your client and coachee. They have to be aligned, right? As in, if that's the first point of the potential challenge where the two don't align or they're not the right fit. And I think you go through, when you first start out in coaching, you go through all this and it's almost just a feeling of like, oh, I didn't enjoy that so much. Oh, I don't feel like I can get that person to where they want to be. And being really open about that. And I think, and not everyone's for everyone. And I think when you run your own coaching practice, you have the choice. When you're coaching in an organization, that's the challenge. As in, sometimes there isn't a bank of coaches to choose from. You've got a business coach and then you've got to go with it. So it's like being able to manage your ego as a coach to understand what are the challenges going to bring if this isn't aligned, what's going to work here. So that's kind of the first biggest challenge I think coaches face.
Yeah. And so what excites you? What is it that makes you buzz when you walk away from a coaching session?
Oh, just like, I'm really fortunate that most people I work with now, because I do say no to people, give me that energy. I love working with them, seeing them transform and think differently for themselves, helping them. Like a client reached out. I was chatting with a client a few weeks ago. I was chatting to them to see if they wanted to come into our group coaching program that we have, because they've been in it before. And they were like, no, I don't need it anymore. Then she was like, well, I probably need some one-to-one in a few months' time. She's like, but I don't need it. And I was so happy and I'm so proud of her because she doesn't need it right now. And it's like she's evolved and developed and she's taken a business to the next stage based on the work we've done in the past. And almost that I'm so proud. And I know you might feel that's counterintuitive because you think, oh, that's a sale or a revenue. But for me, that's success of like, I help that individual to the point that space they don't no longer need because they've evolved.
That's
exciting.
I'm a strong believer in the redundant coach. So how is it that you're helping your client to get to a stage where they don't need you anymore? And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
In that space. Yeah.
What about you, Tienie? What do you love about coaching? What made you get into it?
Like you, I was working for a behavioral assessment company. I then started giving feedback on some of the behavioral reports for large corporate organizations, and then recommended some of my clients in that space to a coaching company because they wanted further coaching. And so the coaching company tapped me on the shoulder and said, why don't you come and join us? And so that's how that evolved. Got my CIPD qualification in transformational coaching, and it just went from there. And like you, I'm also quite an inquisitive kind of person. I also have got a bit of a Dutch South African in me that I kind of drive for results. And so sometimes I've got a little bit of an edgy approach when it comes to coaching and challenge a little bit. But that's just how you evolve into your own coaching methodology. So that's how I've got into it. Obviously, you go through the ebb and flow of what you're learning. I've got a much more softer approach at the minute, just because of all of the learning that I've gone through and self-awareness.
And I do think what you said there is your approach is different to mine, and that emphasizes the importance of you finding a coach that really works for you. And also, our coaching style is, and this is what we talk about in our accreditation, to help people understand what their approach, their methodology is, because every single coach is different because they are a different person. They're not a replica. And we see a lot of cookie cutter programs where this is the box you've got to fit into to be this kind of coach. Whereas we kind of rewrite that and go, who are you and how do we build you into a coach? And that's so important, isn't it? Because if you want to be a coach, you can be your own style coach, because there's some people out there that are pure coaches. There's some people out there that combine coaching with being a leader or being a mentor. And there's a whole array of things in between, but it's understanding who you are, the style of coach you respond to, what you want to be, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
So let's talk about some skills when we talk about coaching, right? Because
Yes.
we've shared our journey, and I think that's really, it's helpful for people who are sitting out there going, what do I want to be a business coach? Like, does this really align with me? What even is a business coach? And can I just say, I know I'm biased, but I feel like everyone should have a coach, like, and a therapist, but another story for another day. But I do genuinely think, just in life, in business, whether you're in an organization or run your own business, having a coach in your corner is just so powerful. Like, I genuinely feel like it can be really changing, life changing to how you move, achieve goals, all that stuff. And there's different stages that you go through that you would require different levels of support and different coaches, but you don't have to necessarily go all out and be a business coach and run your own practice, do you? You can be a coach in a management role, a leadership role, and that is equally as impactful.
Yes. And, you know, when I started back in the day, you know, people had the Council of Five that they would go to for advice. You know, so it's like a best friend, a family member, you know, and then they have their list of 5 people that they would go to when they find themselves in a difficult situation and have to make a particular decision for themselves. And I think some people still have the Council of Five. I feel coaching and a skilled coach can help you manage that for yourself and offer you a rounded impact, help you stretch yourself, help you become a better individual, teammate, colleague, all of those things, partner, all of those things, I think is where a skilled coach could help you.
It helps you think completely differently, doesn't it? Whether you are a coach or have gone through coaching, it's almost that second and third layer effect of you will behave and act and make different decisions based on your experience of either becoming a coach or being coach, if it is the right coach and it's an impactful experience. Like, how I parent even is completely different now that when I do coaching, right? Like, I'm just much more, I slow down, I ask questions, I stay curious, I'm more empowering rather than dictating and telling. Because sometimes you think, what's the quickest way to the solution? Because in business, it's a really fast-paced world, right? Things are changing all the time. You almost don't have time to think and slow down, but actually it's counterintuitive if you don't, because all you're doing is taking a shortcut that isn't going to last. It's not sustainable. It's, you know, it's not going to get you the best end results because you're not going to get the best out of them individuals in front of you.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's and so what would you say the skills are? Just as a foundational element for coaching.
Oh, I could give you a million, but let's just go with 3. Let me share my top 3, and you can share your top 3, right? Because it's obviously there's millions. So I think I've already said slow down, but I think listen, and I think to listen properly, you have to slow down. So I think being able to listen, to understand, like we were having this conversation yesterday, and you become aware very quickly when the person you are talking to or trying to have a conversation with, especially a difficult conversation, how they are listening to you. Are they listening to come back at you from a combative? Are they listening to respond? Are they listening to understand? Like, you know yourself how successful you're going to be in that conversation based on how they listening, but how are you listening, and how can you stay present, and how can you slow yourself down? So listening, to actually listen to understand rather than listen to respond, I think is the first thing. The second thing, and I think this is obviously questioning, because obviously with coaching, you ask lots of questions, but in business and as leaders and as managers, I think asking, not solving. So when someone comes to you, your initial response is to solve and get that person away from your desk as quick as possible, get things moving, but ask a question, clarify, even if it's just a clarifying question, like, slow down and ask questions rather than rush to the solution. Because I just think sometimes that person has a much better solution. It just maybe hasn't got the confidence or the belief in the solution. And they come into you as the person that they see as more senior or whatever to solve it for them, where actually you could empower them to think differently and to have a bit more confidence and a bit more self-belief if you just ask some questions first. I think there's another. I'm struggling to why just 3. I think.
Well, yeah, and so from a coaching perspective, asking a question that's limiting an output creates its own tension for the individual. So I'm sorry.
You're welcome. Thanks. So I've got listen. I've got ask questions, and I think. I'm going to say, can I just have 2 more and I can put them in together?
Yes, go for it.
Lead with empathy and kindness. Like, even if you are challenging, like your approach is challenging, I would say I'm challenging, I hold to account, but I do it with real kindness and empathy. And from a place of, I'm doing this to help you get to where you want to go. And it's never a place of judgment, shame, or aggression or nothing like that.
Yeah.
It is always led and delivered with kindness and empathy. And I think a massive piece of a skill is helping people recognize responsibility and what their responsibility is and isn't. So yeah, all those things. I could just go on forever, but those are my kind of top ones.
Of course, yeah.
What's yours?
So 1 and 2 are kind of combined for me, but it's meeting someone where they are. Your skill set and their skill set may be on 2 different planes, and they may be a master in the space of their craft, and it's how are you able to meet them where they are with the questions that you ask that challenge them enough, or help them in an autonomous way reveal to themselves a way forward. So it's the meeting them where they are, but it's also combined with the flow with that individual, with the energy that they bring. And so it links to your skill of listening. I mean, there's active listening, passive listening, there's all the skill sets of listening, but it's actually listening for understanding so that you can then continue with that flow of that individual. So it re-emphasizes the whole meeting them where they are. So it's the meeting them where they are, keeping with the energy and the flow of where that individual is sitting, and stop coaching when you feel you should stop coaching. Because you've set 60 minutes aside doesn't mean that you need to now continue coaching for 60 minutes. If you get to where you need to get to in 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, it's okay to stop. So it's be in the moment and be present when you're coaching, to flow with that. If you are going to be running over, set and manage expectations around that and say, you know what, we're getting into this. We've rolled up our sleeves. We're now thoroughly exploring this. I feel we need another 20 minutes to dive a little bit deeper in this. Are you okay for us to run over? And it's those kind of things that being present and being in the flow of that whole coaching experience is demonstrating your positive intent for them. And something I wanted to build off in the it's a no judge zone, and feedback is always with positive intent.
Yeah. And I think where I see, I've got 2 things to build off there. I think the first thing is on there is what I see a lot is in organizations, people not separating the coaching conversation to the managing conversation. And that can be really dangerous, right? Because you're ruining that trust. You're almost restricting the impact you're going to have as a coach. But something else I just wanted to highlight, because we're talking here, how do we elevate performance? So all these skills helps managers lead better, have a more collaborative conversation, empower people more. But it doesn't just have to be that sit-down coaching conversation for 60 minutes, does it? Because I think the coaching landscape is changing. It is evolving. We've got to evolve with it. And I think it can be really impactful having those coaching approach, those water cooler coaching moments. And I think it's having your style of leadership managing first as an ask as a coaching approach that can just be as impactful as sitting down having those long 40, 50, 60-minute
Yes.
coaching conversations.
Yes. It just emphasizes that you're paying attention to the individuals around you.
Yeah. Why do you think that people should become an accredited coach? Why do you think they should come and get properly trained and skilled in being a coach? What's the benefits?
Price is what you pay, value is what you bring. Anybody can put a price to an activity. The value that you bring to that activity is the return on investment. And going through an accredited coaching training program helps you validate that that skill set is formally recognized.
And I see coaching as a tool in the tool bag, and I see the whole host of models, frameworks, mentoring, facilitating, teaching all in there. And I feel like, because we get the argument all the time, or I definitely do, of, oh, I've got 30 years experience of managing and leading, I don't need accreditation. And I feel like that all that wisdom and knowledge is beautiful, but it's from your perspective. Why don't you use all that? Go and get some proper formal training, so then you can come at it from a more overarching, independent perspective, and that can be something you dip in and out of. I don't know what's your thoughts on that.
So there's 4 key activities here. The one is learning, teaching, which is a totally different activity than coaching.
Yeah.
The next one is mentoring. Now that I've taught you something, let me mentor you in application. Totally different activity to coaching. Then I release you into the wild to go and do your thing.
Yeah.
Is a totally different skill set for a manager or a leader, because now I have to release and not micromanage.
Yeah.
And then we get to coaching. And the coaching skill set is, how am I, based on all the successful activities of teaching, learning, mentoring, releasing without micromanaging, getting them to the utmost performance level through coaching and the empowerment and autonomy that that brings. And that's a skill set in itself that's different to the other 3. And so realizing that for yourself, I think is almost also a first step.
It is, and it doesn't matter how much amazing experience and knowledge and things you've got, you're coming at it from your experience and your perspective, and it's almost going, my way's the only way, my way's the right way, because I'm not going to broaden my view or my learning because this is so good. And it's almost that ego piece of, I don't need that. And I just think in an unregulated world, we just invest the time to get training, accredited, whatever, but do it with someone, with a governing body, do it with someone that's gone through a framework, and do it with people that align to your values and how you approach things.
Yes. And the pieces, I know we've got a couple of minutes, is there's a big difference between telling someone what to do versus empowering them to do it on their own.
And that's not an easy thing to do. No. It's a skill. It's a skill.
It's a skill.
So to elevate your performance, to help improve and empower your team, or to become a skilled business coach, all those skills come into play, and many, many more. But it is so much easier to have empowering conversations with individuals, and you're much more likely to have engaged, high-performing teams and staff if you do take a coaching approach, and you've got those skills in your tool bag to bring out when you need them. Okay, that brings us to the end of this week. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking about that, Tienie. Just as a final note for anyone, 2 things. We're coming back next week, and with our menopause coaches, we're having a panel discussion because it's Menopause Awareness Month. So that'll be exciting. Our first panel on here, which will be brilliant. And also just a reminder, our accreditation, our business coaching accreditation is open. And if you want to have a conversation about it, just hit me or Tinie up. Happy to discuss and share anymore. But thank you, as always, Tinie. Absolute pleasure.
Always, Kirsty. Yeah, it's Richard and Judy, isn't it? Kirsty and Tienie.
Is that an old school reference?
That's
Can we
an old
go
school
something a bit
reference,
more
sorry.
modern?
Sorry. Yes, let's go. The modern Kirsty and Tienie. Let's do that.
Right.
Right.
See you next week.